Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Marketing Resolution YouTube channel. I have with me once again, and with great pleasure, Rachel Virk. This is a series of 5 conversations. And this section, I would like to ask, I don't know, maybe a naive question, but it can't possibly be true that everybody hates or dislikes or can't get along with their ex-to-be. I mean, surely there are situations when it's all good, right?
Absolutely, Natalie, and thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Yes, one of the things that I frequently say is not everybody hates each other just because they're getting a divorce. There are a tremendous number of people who just realize that, you know, they don't want to spend the rest of their lives together. They still care about their ex-to-be. They wish them well, but they're just not going to be happy spending the rest of their lives together. And they go through a very amicable, uncontested, almost tender divorce process. It's my privilege as a mediator to work with people like this. And I will never forget, I once was talking with a litigator and I said something along the lines of, you know, some people you just almost wonder why they're getting a divorce. There's such tenderness. And she almost got angry and vicious. She yelled at me. She's like, I don't believe you. And this is a litigator that I know litigates everything. And she honestly didn't believe that not everybody hates each other just because they're getting a divorce, because a lot of lawyers don't see that kind of process if they don't mediate. But it's been my honor and privilege to mediate with people who don't hate each other just because they're getting a divorce. And I've been really privileged to hear the most amazing things and comments that they say. Let me just say that I meet with hundreds of people each year. It's been 29 years, thousands of people. So I hear a lot of things. And some statements resonate with me and have stayed with me. And they're just amazing comments that I think I'd like to share.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, you've got my curiosity piqued now. So without risking, breaking confidentiality or ethics rules, what are some of the greatest things you've heard in your mediation rooms?
I've actually made a little bit of a list, and it's found in my book, The 4 Ways of Divorce. But these are some of the comments that I've heard people say over the years. If it really means that much to her, even though I'd like it to, she can have it. I know I don't have to pay that much child support, but I want her to be able to keep the children in their activities, and I want them to stay involved, so I'm going to pay for them. See, here in Northern Virginia, you can't really ask a judge to make somebody pay for extracurriculars, but sometimes people want to do that because it's the right thing.
Yeah.
Or I'll hear someone say, I know my children like his new girlfriend, and she will be their stepmother. I will be happy my daughter has a stepmom at her father's house to do her hair. Now, when a lady's being left because her husband found somebody else that he'd rather be with, and it's devastating to her, and it's hurtful and hard and sad, I have seen women conduct themselves in a mediation with dignity, even though it's tearing them up inside. They're so sad, but they've got their head held up. They want to be their best person. They're not going to make it a big ugly thing. They know that woman is going to be doing their little girl's hair, and they're going to just accept that fact and try to find the best in it.
I like that.
I've heard people say, we were married for over 20 years and she took care of all of us. I want her to be comfortable. And I've had mediations where a lady was committing adultery. And in Northern Virginia, that can make it much harder for her to get alimony. And he could drag her through the courts and say, she's committing adultery, I don't want to pay her alimony and all this. But I've had cases where, notwithstanding that, guy kind of understands that maybe he had some role in why the marriage failed. It kind of takes two. Often adultery is a symptom of a marriage that went awry, not the cause of it. And he's still willing to pay alimony. And along those lines of adultery, I've heard people say, I know his baby is innocent in all this and will be a half brother to our children. I will welcome him into the family. What do you do when your spouse, male or female, is having another child with the paramour, and that's going to be a half sibling to your children. Are you going to hate that baby, that child? That's your children's half brother or half sister. They may grow up together, and maybe it's not the best thing to hate that baby. I've heard people say, I know our child is better off with him, so I won't contest custody. It's very hard for a lot of women to not fight for custody. There's still a stigma against that. But some women understand, maybe our sons want to be with him, or maybe our daughter wants to be with him, and that's the right thing to do, even though maybe I could fight in court and win. I've heard people say, I know that she and the kids will be better off if they move away and in with her parents for a few years while she finishes her degree. I've seen people watch their kids go, and it tore them up, but they couldn't go with them, or they had to go and they couldn't take the kids, but they knew that the kids belonged with mom, or with mom living back with her family for a while. And even though it was a bit of a challenge to work out custodial time and visitation time and all this, they knew it was the right thing for the kids to go, or for them to go and to have that division. That's one of the hardest things. Occasionally that has to be the best thing, at least for a few years. I've heard people say, I want the kids to spend as much time with their father as possible. Some women feel maybe that they should be primary and they've been the primary caretaker and dad should just visit. Or they might feel, no, as much time as those kids can have with him, as much time as he can make, I want that to be the case. I've heard people say, I want to give her the house. I know our children are grown, but I don't want them to hate me. There are people divorcing, they've got adult children, and maybe she's in her 50s, pushing 60, and maybe he's doing just fine, and maybe he's willing to say, you know what, this house has a few $100,000 in equity that I could fight for in court, but here you go, it's yours. I've also heard people say, he worked for it, put his life on the line, so I won't ask for any of the pension. Especially military wives, they've really earned that pension as much as their husband has, with all the moves and packing and unpacking and finding new schools and new jobs and new doctors and new everything. But maybe there are other assets, or maybe she's getting remarried to a new guy that has a great job, or maybe she has her own independent assets and she could go for some of that pension, but she chooses not to. I've heard people say she's happier with him and I wish him well. I wish her well. I couldn't make her happy. I know this new guy will, and I hope she's going to have a happy life. I couldn't give her that. I've heard people say, I know I don't have to agree in writing to pay for college, but I still want to. And that is a very, very common thing where I am. A lot of people have good assets. They have good college plans. Judge can't make somebody pay for college, but maybe it's the right thing to do because you want to do it anyway and you were planning on doing it. I've heard people say, even though the court can't make me go out and purchase life insurance, I will anyway. Because if I die, the alimony or child support stops. And even though a judge can't make me go buy it, I'm going to do that. I've heard our son will probably want to live with him in a few years. I'll let him. A lot of 16-year-old boys start feeling at that age, maybe they do want to be with dad. Maybe they wanted to be with mom when they were 8, 7, 5, but maybe at 14, it's a little bit different. And it's very hard for her to give that child up where dad spends more time, more overnights during the week than her. I've heard we've agreed to name each other as trustees in our estate plans because we trust each other. And each of us knows the kids better than anyone else. Now, here you are getting a divorce, you're going to create an estate plan, let the other one be trustee. I've heard I don't need a detailed visitation schedule because we work that out just fine. Not everybody has to have everything in writing. Some people can just keep on keeping on the way they were. Right. I've heard I'll stay on the mortgage until our youngest graduates from high school 6 years from now, so you don't have to move, since I know you won't qualify to refinance. Lady may not be able to buy him out and stay in that house, but maybe the kids are a few years away from school. Maybe one child is a sophomore and the other one is maybe in 8th grade. And they want to keep the sophomore child in that school till they graduate, but now the 8th grader is going to be there till 10th grade, and maybe they should be able to graduate too. He can order that house. He can have the judge order that house sold. If she can't buy him out, the judge will order that house to be sold and the proceeds divided if he doesn't want it. But maybe he's willing to stay on that mortgage so the kids can stay there. I've heard, again, I've touched on this, we'll put into our agreement, we will share college costs. I've heard I won't ask you for any child support yet, so you'll have time to get back on your feet. Maybe somebody just got out of recovery from alcohol abuse and they don't have a job yet, or maybe they're just trying to get back on their feet with a job that's barely supporting them, and maybe she's not going to make them pay. I've heard we'll both take the kids to the classes, practices, games, birthday parties, and other activities in which they're involved, same as when we live together. Some people have been doing it for so long with their kids, they just keep on doing the same thing, and they're raising those kids from two homes the same way that they were raising them from the one home when it comes to the kids. I've heard you can hold the passports. Now, in litigation cases, I hear, I'm afraid she's going to take the kids out of the country and I'll never see them again, or she won't give me the passport. In a nice, tender mediation, I might hear, you can hold the passports. I'll hear, how much money do you need each month? I've heard, how much can you pay? I've heard, what do you think is fair? I've heard, I wouldn't want you to have to go back to work yet, so I'll pay spousal support until our youngest starts first grade. Yeah, she could, argue that income should be imputed to her because she's sitting on a college degree or an accounting degree and she's not working. But he might say, you know what, I want you to stay home until our youngest is in school full time. So I'm just going to make that happen by giving you the money to do that. I've heard, I know you wouldn't be able to trace your separate down payment, but I know you made it, so you can have that off the top when we sell the house. Maybe somebody sold their premarital home and put $80,000 into the marital home, but they didn't think they were going to get a divorce. They didn't document on the HUD sheets and canceled checks and bank statements the fact that they did that. And yeah, if that $80,000 got commingled and they can't trace it adequately, they're not going to get it. So she's going to get an extra 40. But maybe that person says, you know what, I know you paid it. I'm not going to fight about it. Get it off the top. We're not going to go to court over that. I've heard we'll work out those issues regarding the kids the same way we did before the separation. People don't really change just because they're getting a divorce. If they were a certain way before the divorce, if he was providing before the divorce, if they didn't fight about medical care before the divorce, they're probably not going to fight much after the divorce, usually, unless somebody's all about controlling and being difficult, but certainly in a mediation, they're not like that. I've heard if you need to move down there where the cost of living isn't so high, I'll look for a job and a place down there too, so I can stay involved in our children's lives. Northern Virginia is one of the most expensive areas in the country to live. We're one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. Loudoun County, where I practice, I think is usually top 1 or 3 in the country year after year. Cost of living is ridiculous up here year after year. So people might say, I'm going to go down to North Carolina. I used to hold up a picture of a house of a client that lived in a modest area here in Sterling, and another picture of the house she got in one of the Carolinas with something called a lanai. I didn't know what that was. It's like a porch on the water in a beautiful gated community, pools and everything. Same cost for that house. Big difference between the cost of living. So maybe if she's got to go down there, she's got a reason, she's got a job, maybe he would go too. I've heard she'll never be their mom, you are. He'll never be their dad, you are. I've told the children to be nice to his fiance and to listen to her. Some women want to engage in the whole parental alienation thing and say, that woman broke up our marriage and you can't like her and she's terrible and, all this kind of thing. And then the child feels bad because they like the person. Maybe she's not so horrible. And they feel like they're betraying mom if they like the person and betraying dad if they don't. Why put that burden on the kid? Tell the child, be nice to her. He loves her. Just get along. I've heard her fiance can pick the little children up from daycare on his way back from work since he gets off earliest. If both parents are working until 6 and somebody's fiance is getting off work at 2 or 3, why can't they go get the kids and bring them back to the party's house if he's getting off work sooner? I'll pay spousal support until you finish your degree since you left school to take care of our child. I want to do what's right. I want for us to remain friends when this is over. I'm sorry. These are things you don't hear in court, but you do hear them in mediations because these are very special people who understand you don't have to hate each other just because you're getting a divorce.
So I'll be honest and say that listening to this list of things that you hear in mediation, this is just the loveliest segment that I've recorded. I mean, this is a stunning tribute to humans. I'm loving this aspect of divorcing in a mediation room. This is really, really, I don't know, affirming, and it feels like these people have just liberated themselves from what could be ugly, and they intentionally choose the honorable, the happy, the responsible, the tender, the good bits. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us, Rachel. I think it is important for us to be reminded that it's not always horrible. It's not always, the worst scenario. It can be a good, healthy, lovely thing.
The issues are real. Pain is real. And so is the opportunity to be the best person that you can be. And not everybody hates each other just because they're getting a divorce.
What a perfect way to end this particular segment in our series. Rachel Virk, thank you so much. Again, everyone, the book is called 4 Ways to Divorce. It's on Amazon.com. If you or someone you know is thinking about divorce or is in the midst of divorce, log on to Amazon, grab a copy of this book, or log on to Rachel's website. The address, of course, I will have below in the description bar. And as always, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like and share these videos. They are a fantastic resource, again, not just for you, the viewer, but for someone that maybe your family member, your neighbor, a fellow congregant, or coworker. So at any rate, thank you again, Rachel. This particular segment, so reaffirming, so lovely, so positive. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Natalie, and that list is in the book.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.